listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome. I am excited to know that you're out there today. You know, it is just the season of everything is happening. It's so busy here, and I know it's busy in your life. But if you are here listening to this podcast today, you are going to walk away hear an unbelievable story from a delightful lady and how she maintained it and discovered her path. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Sally Norton. Now, she holds a nutrition degree from Cornell University and a master's degree in public health. Her path to becoming a leading expert on dietary oxalate, including a prior career working at a major medical school in medical education and public health research. Her personal health experience inspired years of research that led to her forthcoming book that is just going to be released on December the 27th, and it's called Toxic Superfoods. So welcome. I am really excited about sharing your story, Sally. This is like, I can't believe that would have happened to you. But
thank you so much for taking an interest. It's really fun to meet you and share this with your listeners. And I'm so glad you tripped on the word oxalate. That really helps listeners hear it because nobody's heard the word, so nobody knows how to say it.
I know, it really is a new vocabulary. Yeah. For me. So, Sally, with so much education and background, why was it that it was so long in being uncovered as to your health problems that you were experiencing, which you just shared with me started at a very early age?
It did start early where I was struggling with pain problems and even brain function problems and then fatigue problems. And then it developed into osteopenia later and all kinds of, it just pops up and it's like, so I was having all these health problems and why couldn't I figure that out? I decided as a little kid that I wanted to have great health, not be sick, not get cancer, not get heart disease. And I wanted to help other people because I had an insight, thanks to a science teacher when I was 12 in seventh grade, that, what you eat really heavily influences whether you get major diseases and how you live. And that it doesn't pop out of randomness. There's got to be underlying ways to maintain normal health and underlying ways to lose your health. And you want to understand these things if you want to have fun and not have pain and not be a patient. Like, I thought that was a really great thing to study. So I decided early on that would be my career. And I haven't wavered since 12 years old. Wow. And I'm almost 60. So I've stayed steady with that. So shouldn't I know what's making me sick? Aren't I a professional in this arena? Why didn't I know that? And that was particularly disturbing to me because I feel like I've set up my whole life to help people. And it must be that just like in the rest of my field, I have a degree in public health. That means I care about the health of everyone and all the determinants in our lives that affect how well we do and how our babies come out and how our kids grow up and how our elders die. All these things matter to us in public health. And I should know how to be healthy. That's what that's my career. Right. How could I be so sick and not know any of this? In my field of public health, has been making lots of mistakes. If you sit back and look at the state of our health right now, we have a crisis of obesity. We have a crisis of diabetes. We have a crisis of dementia. We have a crisis of young children getting sick on things they never used to be sick on. Our generation didn't have so many childhood diabetics, so many children on air, having to carry a pump so they could breathe. We've got so many issues happening younger and younger. More and more children needing medication. To me, this is a failure in public health. And I feel I was thinking, well, that's bad enough that we've allowed a big diabetes epidemic to occur, but there's also a big epidemic in chronic pain.
Oh, yes.
right? Don't we have an opioid crisis because people get hooked on pain medication because their pain isn't resolving,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And we have a big problem with autoimmune problems. More and more people are getting fancy syndrome names for all kinds. They're saying like 80 to 100 diseases are really just autoimmune problems, and whatever that is. Why is this exploding? Why are more allergies happening? Why are we getting more and more osteopenia and osteoporosis? Why does everyone end up with arthritis? So we're missing the boat somewhere. And it turns out that my personal experience is revealing this hidden nugget that's been in the medical literature for 200 years. And we don't even know how to say the name of this substance that can be so toxic that it can contribute to all our major problems we're suffering with as a human race.
Right. Yeah. Well, you explained in the materials that you sent me to read about that you were eating a balance, what you would consider a balanced diet, but yet you felt fatigue. You felt that, you had other issues going on. And so you went to the doctors and they couldn't identify it either. So you became the researcher in trying to find your health, correct?
Absolutely. I had nothing better to do because I could no longer work. I had to quit. My last official job in academia was writing research grants in public health, helping my fellow faculty pull together their research proposals and administer the research funding, reporting, and so on, in a medical school that was trying to become a school of public health in Virginia. And so I couldn't, that was brain work. I mean, putting together budgets and writing and all this is constant emails, constant writing. This is really a lot of brain work. And I was pushing and pushing really hard to function. And my back was getting worse. And I developed problems with, like reproductive bleeding and just really major issues. I had to leave. I had to quit. I was just not well. And I had a hysterectomy complete and I didn't recover. And I was basically confined to laying around on the couch and thinking, well, maybe I could volunteer somewhere. I just couldn't function. I couldn't
Right.
read. I was really exhausted. So my doctor said, your blood tests look fine. You look okay, but clearly you're not well. We'll send you to sleep lab. It's just like that was always the last ditch effort for the doctor I was seeing, who was an endocrinologist, because it was post losing ovaries. So I was seeing an endocrinologist like, well, why can't I focus? Why can't I read? Why can't I exercise? Why can't I have a life? And the sleep study revealed brain arousals when you're really not asleep. It was happening 29 times every hour all night long.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a
That's
lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's like 2 minutes of sleep at a time. And then you're awake again. That's not sleep, so I'm not sleeping. That's toxicity. That's neurotoxicity. That's what the literature says. So I'm
Mhm.
like understanding, because the drugs, of course, didn't work. For 3 years, I was on, different degrees of a small handful of drugs to try to sleep. And nothing was working, of course, because what was underlying it was some degree of poisoning from something. And the
Mm.
literature suggested that it was probably dysbiosis of the gut, where the wrong bugs are putting out toxins. This is a common thought that it must be, we blame the microbiome for everything right now. So it
Mhm.
must be that I have like overgrowth, and I had all this belching and bloating. So I completely bought into that theory that I
Right.
needed to fix my gut, which I had been trying to do for 20 years already. I've already spent $20 a month on probiotics and all this stuff for years trying to fix my IBS, which I
Yeah.
developed during my vegan years when I was slow cooking beans and I ruined my digestive tract while
Oh.
bean eating vegan. So I was quite aligned with, yep, it's the gut that I can never fix, is still killing me and now killing my brain. And in
Mhm.
the process, I did some experiments and I also learned about oxalates in the process and started to see a connection between when I was eating the oxalate foods and my swelling of the joints and arthritis.
Yes.
And so, like, arthritis had been bothering me since I was 12.
Mhm. Wow,
And
that's
I
early.
was sort of okay with it in my older years. It didn't seem to be too bad. I didn't have like I got some fibromyalgia over the years and all these things, but It was particularly bad when I was a vegetarian. In my 20s, I had a really hard time with constant swelling and weakness in my joints. Almost any joint could be affected in my body. So
Yeah.
I was like trying to fix the gut so I could sleep, so I could have a life. But now I have this oxalate arthritis thing, and I have to do this silly diet with the oxalates. It's supposed to be for kidney stone patients. I didn't ever learn in my education that avoiding oxalates in food was for anybody else but kidney stone patients. I didn't know it was for arthritis patients or any of that. So, but I'm like, oh, okay, we'll do that because, who wants arthritis? And lo and behold, by doing that, in less than 2 weeks, my sleep got better because now I was able to read. I didn't have the mental energy to read my own mail.
Really?
Yeah, my brain was gone. That's why I couldn't work anymore.
Oh my word.
And it came back when I quit eating sweet potatoes and Swiss chard. Those were the two foods that I was using on a routine basis that are particularly high in oxalate that I was poisoning myself with. And when I was doing my gut experiment, like how to get my gut healthy, I had added in 2 kiwis every day. And they're very high in oxalate, and they brought back brought back the arthritis, even though I was still eating some sweet potatoes here and there and some chard occasionally. It was that routine eating 2 kiwis that brought back the arthritis. And then lo and behold, now in the process of all the research I had done, I had started to be now aware of when I was eating oxalates. Before, like the rest of us, I never thought about the oxalate content of the foods I was choosing to make, kind of my routine faves. And none of us have that lens. Like we think of fat content, salt content. Maybe we think about the seed oils, the kind of artificial fake fats that we use in margarine, that we know those are really bad. The trans fats are bad. Too much omega-6 is bad. You have lots of awareness of things in food, but oxalate isn't one of them. Even all of us in the health professions, I don't care if you're an MD, a dietitian, a massage therapist, a naturopath, a chiropractor, none of us are paying any attention to oxalate because of our education. So when I was doing my research, I was shocked to see that oxalate poisoning from food was a diagnosis that began in 1842 and was in the medical literature for 100 years. And we never got it in our education when I went to school in the 80s and so on.
Yeah. Well, just tell me, what is oxalate?
It's an acid.
Tell me, and I didn't know.
Yeah, so nobody knows what it is. So, in foods, there's all these different compounds. There's fats and proteins, and foods are tart because they have acids in them. There's malic acid and all these different acids. Well, this is they call it a dicarbolic acid. It's a carbolic, it's a carbon with 2 oxygens. Well, this is 2 carbons with now 4 oxygens. So it's a very small little acid called oxalic acid. Now, oxalic acid has been used by humans since the 1700s as a cleaning acid. So they can make a powder out of it, and then it's called oxalate. It's called potassium oxalate, or it's sodium. It's either sodium or potassium oxalic acid. It's called oxalate when it's dry or it turns into a crystal. So you can buy these little crystals and you can use them in your factory to bleach cottons, prepare them for dyeing. You can take the rust out of engines. You can take the rust out of your patio. In Barkeeper's Friend powder, you've got oxalic acid. It's been used for 250 years as a cleaning agent because it has this reactive ability to lift out metals and chelate things. And it also has a lot of oxygen in it, and that's probably helping it be a cleaner too. So we've now changed, and we tend to use bleach more in other cleaners. It's less common, but you can still get it in Zud. It's a wood bleach, so people who refinish old furniture use it to lift stains out of wood. So this same acid is in your kiwi and your spinach. So the really high ones that have a lot of it, that's way more than we're designed to handle, because it's very toxic, really, when you get too much. And too much turns out to be lower than most of us realize, who are in the few of us that are aware of oxalate have been giving oxalate a pass and kind of like, well, whatever's in food can't be that bad. So we just kind of been lazy about thinking carefully about how much we can handle. And really, a spinach salad probably has 4 or 5 times the amount you're built to handle in an entire day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Here, I thought I was doing good to have a spinach salad.
Yeah.
Not
We
really.
are being told to do that, aren't
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
That's the big problem, right? Isn't this our big problem? What's really galling me is that not only have we ignoring oxalate, we're so ignoring it to the point where we're promoting foods because of another theory that isn't proven, that we
Mhm.
need the phytonutrients in dark leafy greens to
Yeah.
be healthy, which has never been proven. And that whole theory is still very theoretical, and they're still trying to prove it. That concept came up in the late 1980s. So
Mhm.
for 40 years, we've been trying to work out, like, do we need polyphenols or not? Like, tannins are bad for you. A lot of polyphenols are bad for you. They block enzyme action. The liver doesn't like them. The gut doesn't like them. The kidneys get rid of it fast. Like, despite all that, we're trying to believe, based on Petri cell studies, that these plants have antioxidants in them. And mostly they have irritating chemicals that turns on our own antioxidant power. And they do raise antioxidants in the body because they're toxic. So
Mhm.
it's like, how much do we medicate ourselves with these plant compounds in a safe way? And we're so focused on the potential benefits of some tricky compounds and the polyphenols that we're completely pretending oxalate isn't even there. And
Mm.
that's a big mistake because nobody knows about it. So your average internet pusher and your average magazine cover designer is not worried about throwing spinach on every magazine cover and in every blog post and telling you to do spinach smoothies and put spinach in your lasagna and put spinach in your
Mhm.
ravioli and put spinach everywhere you can fit it. Hide it in the kids' meatballs, hide it
Yeah.
in the baby food. Like, we're pushing spinach. It's even in the little dried crackers that children are being given as their first foods. It's very dangerous. We've known since the 1930s that it's very dangerous to give children spinach because it causes devastating calcium deficiency in babies.
Really?
We've known this. It's established science, and it's been, confirmed on and off over the years, and then randomly unconfirmed by people who do studies that don't find that, and so it's really sad. And what I've had is grown-up calcium deficiency disease. It's called osteopenia. And luckily this diet reversed it completely. And I have my scans come out much better. After 4 years on the diet, I reversed the osteopenia.
And is this diet listed in your book?
The whole book is about the whole problem of oxalates that we're getting into, because they're in these foods that were so popular right now, like the spinach, chard, beets and beet greens, and
Yeah.
sweet potatoes, and so on. So the whole book is explaining that this is a problem, and why, and that, what the science says, that we can only really handle a very limited amount of oxalate and not get into serious health problems. And over time, even if we don't have symptoms, we're developing old age, basically.
Yeah.
It's breaking down our connective tissue and our bones and interfering with thyroid function and other gland function and messing up your kidneys and urinary tract too, because that's the exit route. It's
Mhm.
considered water soluble, so your kidneys have to handle a lot of it and concentrate it when they make urine, and you're peeing out oxalate a lot. So if you get cloudy urine a lot, that could be the crystals, because oxalate is getting into your blood as acid. And then somewhere in the body, could be from the blood or from the cells or from the tissues, it's taking calcium or magnesium or iron and bonding with it. So it comes in and it becomes a mineral thief,
Mhm.
which disturbs electrolyte balance in the body, which is very toxic to immune cells and very toxic to nerve cells, because the nerves, especially in muscles, we have very careful control over electrolytes, especially calcium. And oxalate comes along and starts interfering with basic cell functions way down at the mitochondria, and just everything is so important to nerves. So you can get I used to get hiccups, for example, at bedtime.
Really?
That
Just
is a neurotoxicity. I never heard of it that way until I was reading about oxalate. And when they give a high oxalate food like starfruit juice to a rat, the rat gets hiccups right before it dies from the oxalate poisoning.
wow.
And it also in humans reports of people coming in sick on starfruit juice and other high oxalate foods. Hiccups is one of the last symptoms before they die from this poisoning. It can be so poisonous, so acutely poisonous, that it can cause heart attack or some kidney failure or something. And man, oh man, when I read that that was the last symptom before death, and I was having hiccup attacks at bedtime routinely for
Oh,
10 years.
yeah. Oh, no.
I was really poisoning myself because I was eating sweet potatoes sometime for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because I had developed a sensitivity. This messes up your digestive tract. So I had become unable to really handle wheat and bread, no longer could handle the beans anymore. Like my body was becoming less and less tolerant of these foods as I was ruining my digestion, eating healthy sweet potatoes and healthy cooked beans and things. I just didn't know what I was doing. And I have a degree in nutrition from a major Ivy League institution that's highly respected for nutrition. Like if anyone should know better, it should have been me. And I didn't, because that's how inadequate our attention is. And the last 100 years, we've stopped paying attention to oxalate at our great peril.
Yes. Now, this is a simple question, but I'm really quite curious. As we age, women particularly get urine infections very easily. And could that be a side effect of the oxalate?
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, this is so common too. People get these sort of sterile, urinary tract quote infections.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely the case. The oxalate coming into your bladder from your poor beleaguered kidneys can be loaded with crystals and toxic ions of oxalic acid. The immune system and the cells themselves that line the bladder get damaged by that. And you can get bladder pain in addition to, sometimes that what you think is an infection is really kind of like a rash inside the bladder. That's a reaction to this damage. So when you get damaged tissue, the immune cells turn on. They're the mast cells and other immune cells that are there taking care of your bladder, get very disturbed by the thought of this destruction of the lining of your bladder. That creates more possibility of systemic infection. It's trying to protect you from a systemic infection because there's tissue damage, not because there's bacteria that are infecting you yet. But if the immune cell doesn't come in and protect you from this kind of leaky, like damaged lining of the bladder, you could get an infection. So your body's trying to prevent an infection. Often when you're getting these symptoms, you don't really have the infection, but the reaction from the body is the same, whether there's a bacterial infection or whether there's just tissue damage.
That's interesting.
If you ever get a urine test that finds a little bit of blood, invisible blood, that's a very good sign that you may be eating way too much oxalates, which is easy to do. I think we're all eating way too much oxalate.
Right. Sounds like we could be. What are some 5 signs of oxalate overload? In other words, we're eating too much.
We're eating too much. So sometimes you don't get any symptoms at all. I think you're happening along. And a lot of the symptoms that are occurring are so common, and they get more common as you get older. You're just like, well, that's life. So you don't even really think of it as a symptom all the time. So that's another problem. Like sometimes there isn't much symptoms. And the other time you just get so used to it. And we're culturally like, yeah, we all have whatever. So that's the main symptom is like, yeah, you may not be feeling your tip top and you're just like putting up with it. But the most common symptoms are often digestive problems. Where you end up with constipation or diarrhea or gastritis or that kind of thing, or, on and off, you're not really digesting your fats very well. Those could all be signs. Any kind of urinary tract irritations, these infections, blood in the urine, peeing at night, nocturnal urination, having to urinate a lot, having that something like, man, I'm running to the bathroom a lot to pee out a tablespoon. What is wrong with me? That kind of stuff. And then there's neurological signs. Mood and depression can be related to oxalates. Poor coordination. If you're dropping stuff a lot and you're like getting kind of clumsy, you're losing your eye-hand coordination. That's a sign of the neurotoxicity. These hiccups were certainly a sign I didn't know about. Other kinds of tremors might be little tremors in the face or your muscles twitching funny. The twitches and tremors are a sign of that neurotoxicity. And then another big category of signs is rheumatological in nature. So that's arthritis and bursitis and tendonitis and not recovering well from little injuries and like chronically having like a little bum elbow or thumb or, a trigger finger or frozen shoulder, this
Yes.
kind of stuff. Foot problems are common. That was my thing. I had foot problems for years, and my feet were never happy from about age 19 or 20 until age 50, when I got serious about this diet right around Thanksgiving, 3 months before I turned 50. And after that, once I really got serious about the diet, my feet are much happier. I can now do things I never could do before.
What do you mean your feet weren't happy? What were the symptoms that you had?
I started with a pain behind my big toe on the bottom of my foot.
Uh-huh.
When I was 19 in school, I was dragging my books and hiking around campus and earnest getting A's and all this stuff in school.
Mhm, mhm.
And it just got worse and worse. And I was on painkillers. And then when I was on Cornell's campus, both feet were hurting. And I ended up leaving school for foot surgery. And they took out a little tiny bone that sits in the tendon right underneath the ball of the foot behind the big toe.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
both feet, they took that out. The toes were all stiff too. The big toe, they try to loosen that stiffness out of there. And I didn't recover too well from the surgery. The PT didn't help, and I was still not really able to walk. And I stayed on various orthotics for years. I think I had 4 or 5 pairs of fancy orthotics. And back in the 80s, spending $250 per orthotic was a lot of money.
And they're so pretty.
Yes, I got married in sneakers, actually,
Oh, did you?
because the orthotics fit in sneakers. I haven't been
Oh,
able to wear heels until I got to be 50 and got on this diet.
oh,
In fact, I couldn't even go barefoot. So out of my life went all running, any sports on the feet. Like I would have loved to do racquetball and ultimate frisbee and maybe learn to jog or do sprints or something. None of that was in the cards for me. I was lucky if I could stand at the sink and do dishes. I mean, my feet needed to have
hmm.
shoes on. I couldn't go barefoot. But now I could run barefoot on a pavement.
Oh, that's good.
It's
And
good.
that was all changed by your diet, the
That
awareness.
all changed when I stopped eating sweet potatoes, kiwis, and Swiss chard. That finally changed after 30 years of foot pain, and that all changed.
Hmm.
That was like, what? With my husband too, he had developed carpal tunnel syndrome because I was feeding him these foods that I liked and thought were good for us. And then when he was away from me, he was getting black bean burritos often, which is
Oh,
high. Black beans and navy beans and Great Northern, those are very high in oxalate. And he
uh-huh.
liked his French fries at Five Guys too. And potatoes are really high in oxalate. So between his little fun things he liked and the stuff I was feeding him, I actually gave him carpal tunnel syndrome. And by the time I started the diet, he was about to have surgery. That he had just got referred right after I started the diet. He went to this doctor who sent him for the scans and all that to test him. And they said, yeah. And then by the time he got to the surgeon, we had been on the diet for 2.5 months. And the surgeon said, you know what? Let's wait on this because I'm not sure you need the surgery. I'm so glad the surgeon said that because he ended up completely curing his carpal tunnel, which was keeping him up at night with neck pain and shoulder pain. And just he wasn't sleeping well too. And it was probably more than the pain. It was probably also the same neurotoxicity that was making my brain wakeful. I was just so overtired. I didn't know I was waking up. I mean, I was comatized by just exhaustion. And he was aware of his restlessness and inability to sleep and was blaming the pain, which is reasonable.
Mhm.
But there was probably also another level that it was affecting his brain, its ability to stay sleepy.
Had they not diagnosed a CPAP machine for you in that journey?
No, because the breathing was fine. What they saw was the brain waking up and a little bit of limb twitching. And the only diagnosis they could click to that was called periodic limb movement disorder. So there was some twitching in the limbs that goes with the neurotoxicity. And it was this brain not able to settle into real sleep. I didn't have breathing problems. And some people can get breathing problems even from oxalate too. So there isn't one set of symptoms that say, oh, that's oxalate.
Yeah.
It's really different in each person. So I've had people, their only symptom is severe bladder stones. Because this
Oh,
stuff turns into stones in the body. It's the substance of a kidney stone is oxalate,
oh,
but it's Oxalate is a calcium oxalate, not the sodium oxalate or the potassium, but calcium oxalate is the common one in nature. It's common in the body because we're providing the oxalic acid, which is taking the calcium from our bones and tissues and creating kidney stones and bladder stones. So
Oh,
one of my clients, much to my dismay, he doesn't have sleep problems. His brain works fine. His energy is good, but his bladder and urethra is shredded with crystals. It's a big mess.
oh,
So he's in diapers, and the crystals have caused so much damage for him that he'll never have proper urethra function or any control over his urine anymore. He's in
oh.
his 70s. So it went a long time, and he had years of reasons to try hard to take care of his health and use
Mm,
the smoothies and all the healthy foods in it.
right.
For him, I was just surprised to see, like my husband, it was mostly the carpal tunnel and
Mhm.
some mood issues and some sleep issues. And this other person, it was just his bladder. And me, it was like fibromyalgia and foot problems and can't sleep. For me, it was this more, but I don't know, we're all affected differently. And there's not enough science to completely explain this.
Mhm. You mentioned arthritis, which I tend to have some of that in my hands. And how would you uh, be able to tell where arthritis comes from just by uh, eating your diet? Is that the
This is
solution?
this is such an excellent question. We really need to get to a root cause so that the body can finally heal. We don't want to just bash in the symptoms with drugs because the underlying pathology is not resolved. So, your old ladydom down the street isn't going to, your decade or two later down the street, we're not going to feel good as old women if we don't get to the root cause. So this is a really important question. How do you know? Well, there's two ways to think about this. One is you don't even need to know, because if you have inflammatory problems like arthritis, oxalate is only making it worse. And even if it's not the only factor behind your arthritis, it won't really resolve, and the tissues really can't fully heal when you have chronic inflammation. And that's what oxalate is causing. So you have to get
Uh-huh.
oxalate out of your system so your system can stop being poisoned every time you eat, so you
Right.
can resolve chronic inflammation, which is the ultimate cause of death. If you let chronic inflammation go, it degenerates your tissues to the point where you end up fibrotic and old and feeble and falling apart. So it's
Mhm.
really important that you take away toxins from your life. There are other toxins, there are other nutrient deficiencies. This causes nutrient deficiencies, but I think the major root cause of all this kind of tissue disarray and pain comes from some combination of nutrient deficiencies and toxicities. And that's really where we need to be focusing when we think about root cause. Now, the
Mhm.
beautiful thing about recognizing oxalate is that oxalate is something that you're exposing your whole digestive tract to, your liver, your vascular system, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, all your glands after every meal. It takes about 4 hours to reach that peak. So if you eat a high oxalate breakfast, by lunchtime, you've got a pretty high level of oxalates in your blood and your bladder and so on. And then lunch, you go and have high oxalate toppings on that lunch pizza.
Yeah.
You got more oxalates at dinner time. And then at dinner, you go have that nice big sweet potato and maybe chocolate for dessert. Chocolate, unfortunately, is another one.
Oh, no.
Oh no, that's the bad news. But
Happy.
don't worry about that one.
Okay.
Because
Because
you get to keep some oxalate in your diet. We tolerate some oxalate, but just a little bit. But honestly, if you're picking between Swiss chard and chocolate, it shouldn't be that hard a decision which one has to go.
chart
Chard every time.
chocolate is just too good.
Yeah, but you do need to watch it, because the darker the chocolate, the higher the oxalate. So if you love your chocolate really, really dark, you need to eat it in little tiny gourmet bites,
Wow.
not massive bars. Like there are certain stores that will sell you like a pound or 2 pound brick of chocolate, and you think,
Yeah.
oh, this is a deal and it's good for me, and I'll have a little red wine with it for dessert. And you can really overdo the chocolate too. So you got to think
Mhm.
of it as a little gourmet treat, and a few chips and a chocolate chip cookie is fine. You can handle that level of chocolate. But the way we're doing it now is everywhere, especially this time of year. Here we are in December. If you're in a store, you cannot help by being attacked at the checkout with chocolate covered everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what's it covering usually these days? Nuts. Nuts are incredibly high in oxalate, with
Oh,
almonds being the
really?
worst. Almonds are the
Really?
worst. They are terrible.
You're just destroying my my diet.
Only to get your hands back, though, darling. It's
Oh, yes,
just
I want
because
my
we
hand.
want you to have happy hands. And let me
Yes.
tell you, there's a, hopefully you're not selling your hands for a really cheap price, right? If you think about it, I mean, it's pretty cheap to say I'm willing to have arthritis so I can have my chocolate covered almonds. That's a pretty low price to sell your happiness and your pain, for. If it isn't that big a deal to learn to have other treats and eat a little bit differently to be free of pain.
What about I have discovered a new treat that's in the frozen food section. It's slices of bananas that are covered in chocolate. They are the most delicious things to put in your mouth, and you can't have one or two or three. You have to
Oh,
6.
okay. So it's fine when you're doing 1, 2, or 3. It's the 4, 5, and 6 that's the problem. And so these foods that are addicting us and they don't satisfy with 1 or 2, this is like a potato chip habit or any other of these kind of bottomless bags that you can't eat just one. I
Mhm.
would be very cautious with them and figure out how to, like, okay, that's what I do on Saturdays, or first before I have that, I have my cheese dessert like a French woman might, or, make sure you're getting really good nutrition. And by adding cheese or something when you're eating oxalates, you can slightly mitigate the damage somewhat, because the calcium in the dairy foods binds up some of this oxalate.
Oh, oh, really?
Yeah. But
So,
only to a certain degree. And it doesn't really justify the 6th little slice of chocolate covered banana, but it does help you get away with the 3 or 4 with a little less harm.
well, I've just stopped buying it
See,
because
now
it's
this is
just too
clever.
difficult for me.
That's really it. I mean, we have to parent ourselves and think hard about things that are really not working well for our true interests. They might be entertaining us in the moment, but really in our long-term interest, that's not a good plan. And that's what grown-ups do. They set boundaries for themselves.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm just so I could get clear with this pain that's in my hands, what would be the first step, first plan
The
that I
first
might
plan
go
is to
about to
take a
benefit?
look at my list of the high oxalate foods, which is
Okay.
in my beginner's guide on my website. And
Okay.
see on that list of those foods, which ones are in your shopping cart or your pantry or in your, what are you eating for breakfast? So you kind of think about your own diet style that you're doing now and what's in your life, and try to be as complete about that as possible. And different people might need visual reminders of what they eat by looking in their freezers and pantries,
Mhm.
and then maybe start recording what you're eating before you even think about doing this, just so you're clear with yourself and being honest, because I can tell you that memory about what we eat is terrible. Like, you
Yeah.
really, I mean, think about, what did you eat yesterday all day long? Can you really recreate that list accurately? It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, it
So
is.
based on some assessment, like, get a handle on what you've been eating now. And then you can also think back, like, when you recognize the high oxalate foods, then you can think, did I grow up on beet greens and chard and sweet potatoes and peanuts and whole wheat toast? And because those are all problem foods. And did I love like pickled beets when I was pregnant, or, whatever, there's probably a history there, because the symptoms really show up in middle age. It's when you hit your
Mhm.
40s and 50s where you hit the skids. It's probably just this lifetime of too much peanut butter and whole wheat toast and potatoes that is suddenly breaking through from, you seemed fine and then suddenly you're not. And we see this a lot. So what I would do first is, like, okay, based on your diet, let's say you like peanut butter and whole wheat toast for breakfast. Well, let's rethink breakfast. Start with a one meal at a time and start reconstructing a breakfast based
Mhm.
on the low oxalate foods, and based
Mhm.
on the principle that you need high nutrient density foods, you need quite a bit of protein,
Mhm.
and you need healthy animal fats in there, like butter and so on. So
Mhm.
replace those foods with foods that won't make you hungry and cravey, and have a plan for getting them out of your house too. If you have a big pantry of stuff you're ready to stop eating, like gallons of peanut butter, see if the squirrels might eat that peanut butter for you or something else. Make some like bird feeders for Christmas presents, like,
Yeah, right.
the peanut butter slathered on whatever. So
Mm.
there's, I think it's personal. That's what I don't think there's a program for everyone. I think look at what you're doing and then find a path out of it and take your time doing it.
Mhm. Now you talked about your website. What's on your website that we can go to and really begin our journey with you?
The website is loaded with free information in various tabs. So be sure to learn how to navigate through the various tabs and read about the symptoms and the
Mhm.
science and all kinds of stuff in there. There's a results tab. If you like inspiration, there's a few old, I don't keep up with the constant
Mm.
input of people telling me how much this information is changing their lives. I just thinking about it brings a lump to my throat. It's amazing. So there on the front page, you can see where you can sign up for a Zoom group class and you can get a little lesson with me and meet people
Oh, that
who
would
are
be
doing
good.
this diet. That's
Yeah.
fun. Although, some people are so sick. You may meet people whose lives are like really rough because they're so sick on oxalate poisoning, but it's
Mhm.
really also very inspiring to see people get better and share their stories. So that's fun. On the shop page, you can get free downloads. There's a document called Oxalate Basics, and a lot of people have borrowed that material and put it on their websites. So
Oh,
you might recognize it when you start
how
looking around the
nice of
web,
you.
like, boy, that's the same language as in Sally's old document. So that's popular. So you might want to get the Oxalate Basics. You can get the beginner's guide for very inexpensive, or get on my email list, and then you'll get an email that'll let you get a coupon to get it for nothing.
Uh-huh.
There's a cookbook there with almost 200 recipes of how to do vegetables, how to work with a turnip and cabbage and all these low oxalate foods that you'll see in the beginner's guide. Talks about the basics, has the high foods and the low foods. And that's a really simple, like the ones that you really want to limit and the ones that are safe in most any amounts. And then the cookbook will help you learn how to cook some of these foods. And if you're, a lot of people have thinking they shouldn't eat eggs or shouldn't eat meat.
Mhm.
But I really don't agree with that whatsoever. So I really want people to feel comfortable having eggs whenever you like. They're great for breakfast, having plenty because you need enough protein. 2 eggs is often not enough protein to start the day.
Really?
Yeah, it's not
Oh.
even half the amount of protein you need. So you want to add some breakfast meats and cheese and other things to your eggs if you're only having
Mm.
two, to
Mhm.
really get enough protein to rebuild our bones and muscles. Every good high protein meal helps to tell the body to build muscle and bone. And that lean body mass, we call that muscle and bone, is that lean body mass. That's your reserve of good health, especially as we get older.
Mhm.
It's really important to not get thin, tiny little muscles when you're older. So getting enough protein starting with breakfast is a great idea. It's also a great weight loss strategy because if you get enough fat and protein, you can go to lunch, you're not snacking and grazing, you feel better, your brain works better, and your insulin stays lower so that you don't you don't fluff up your fat cells. Every time your insulin goes up because you had carbs, you're
Mhm.
fluffing up your fat cells and giving yourself like
Oh.
love handles, and you don't need them.
Hmm. What about sauerkraut?
That's a
Is that
great
a
one. That's a great one. It's very low. It's using cabbage. The whole cabbage family is low oxalate. So, and
oh,
when you
good.
ferment it, it even might take it down a little bit more. So the fermented vegetables are very easy to digest. You just want to not they're not an entree. They're more of a relish and a garnish on a plate. They're very good to include. And there are some people who think that the acids in sauerkraut help us get rid of glyphosate from our bodies, which is this Roundup poison that is now in our water and our air and so everywhere that even if you eat an organic diet, you've got glyphosate poisoning in your body now. So some people are promoting sauerkraut juice to help you with just, kind of detoxing modern chemicals a little bit. So
Mhm.
that's a good thing. Just, if you overdo anything, it might not be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm totally convinced, Sally, that I need to get your book for sure. Now it comes out on the 27th of December.
Yeah, that was the original plan. Absolutely, it was, but something happened
Oh,
at the print shop.
oh, no.
So it's going to be a week later, probably. Right now, we're getting news that it's the 3rd of January now, which
Oh,
is
that's not bad.
simultaneously disappointing, but hey, it gives us more time to get the word out. And I
Yeah.
really am hoping that there'll be a whole conversation, that we're creating a big public conversation about pushing spinach and almonds and these foods that we are being told is so good for us in the ignorance of oxalate is a terrible idea. And I want us to stop doing that.
Right. Yeah. So now that you, of course, after the book comes out, you'll go on a book tour probably. Is that what happens?
Well, since this is my first book, I'm not completely clear about that. And people have really gotten away from traveling because of the COVID and everything. So it'll be interesting to see who wants me to come where and how we can make that all work, because there is only one of me and traveling takes a lot of time. I am hoping to get out and see a lot of people, and we'll see how that goes. I'm leaving some space in my client calendar so that I'll be more available in early January to be here with you on
Mhm.
podcasts and other ways of sharing this information, because that's my heart's desire, is to have people have a chance to know about this. So if they really want help, they can take this into consideration, because I fear that you're not getting the opportunity to know this information because there's been kind of a blackout kind of attitude about it. There's a little bit of willful ignorance that shouldn't be there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, we are sold so many plans as we develop. I have a lady that I know, and she's always working on her body. She's very always at the gym, pays a lot of attention, and she eats sweet potatoes. And I wanted to share this with her for sure. Because
Please do share it with her, because, that's the other thing that really galls my idealistic self. Like, those of us who are trying really hard to be healthy are getting punished for doing so. That is the most unjust concept I ever did see. It's just not fair. So she deserves to know.
okay, I'll order a book for Christmas for her.
How lovely of you. That's nice.
Yes. So we are quickly getting to the end of our time together, but this has been so informative. I mean, I'm definitely one of those that have been bombarded by the oxalates, I'm sure, like most of us have been.
Like most of us have been. And I am so excited to have you join us in being oxalate aware. That's every time someone says, I'm interested in learning more, it just thrills me to death, because it is so cool to be less toxic. You're just going to feel better. I'm sure of it. And I can't wait to hear how it goes for you.
Oh, thank you. Me neither. I mean, it'll be a new world for me. But I'll start with the book and your website for sure.
Good
The
idea, because the book helps to let you know that you don't have to go too fast at this, because if you go too fast, it's actually kind of traumatic to the body for some people. And we don't know who need to be really careful to go slow and who can just, let's get rid of the oxalate. So get as informed as you can. And also, by having the book and hearing podcasts or coming to my group meeting, it helps to kind of sink in, because there's no awareness of this. So it's easy to get amnesia and like forget about it, so it's helpful to like surround yourself with this information so it can sink into your mind, because it does. I guess that's one reason I've spent so much time learning and writing and teaching. It helps me to not forget about oxalates.
Well, how long did it take you to write this book? It sounded
Oh boy,
maybe a long time.
a very long time. And in a way, the writing of the book started when I started getting sick as a teenager, really, because or when I decided that this was my career, which both happened when I was 12. But then when I recognized this was a problem for me was in 2013. And I started teaching for free and decided quickly within that year that I needed to do a book, because my whole life all the suffering I've had would be pointless if I didn't try to share it in a bigger way and actually codify the research. So I spent every Sunday at the medical library pulling up medical articles, and traveled to the NIH library and really worked hard at trying to figure this out and find this information, because it's a little bit hidden, especially the older stuff, which is really fascinating. And then it took me 3 years to write a book proposal and find an agent. And then between me and the publisher, it took a couple years to get the book done. So it's easily, you could say 6 to 7 years of writing, you might say. And I'm
but
already
you,
ready to change it. Like it's so old now,
oh
like I need to
no.
make a few updates already. This is what happens with publishing though. By the time, right when the ink hits the press, you're like, okay, I'm ready to do a little tweaking on some things.
Yes. Maybe in the update.
Yep. Oh yeah.
For
And
sure.
I'm going to put
Okay.
stuff on the blog and just be more there. So thank you so much for your interest. And I'm so excited.
Yeah. Now, Sally, you're on YouTube and social media. You're on all of these things,
Well,
website.
I'm on a few things. I'm on Instagram and I'm going to be putting more things on YouTube, and there's things there. And I'm
Mhm.
generally on, and I'm going to have it easier to find other interviews that I've done too, so people can hunt around for additional. Every conversation is unique. So each one has got little pearls in it.
Mhm.
And I'm on LinkedIn and a little bit on Facebook. I'm going to get some help now to help me be on Facebook a little more. I have not really been having a good time with Facebook, and I've been so busy, but I'm going to be out there more. But my website is the place to be in touch,
Yes.
because I can always, if you get on my email list, I can say, hey, my Instagram account got hacked or whatever, like, oh, somebody messed up my
Mhm.
YouTube channel. Like with at least with an email, I can let you know when things change, because it happened to me this year. My Instagram account got stolen and I
Oh.
couldn't tell anybody. And so they thought I was now telling them to invest in Bitcoin. I don't do that. I'm just the don't eat spinach lady. So if any of my stuff tells you to invest in Bitcoin, it isn't me, I promise you. But if you sign up on my website and stay in touch with us that way, then it's a more honest communication happening there.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Facebook is not where I like to really spend a lot of time, but there are some women that do. And
Yeah,
so, I may go once a week. I'm not that, but it is the place to find that woman that's suffering with your urine infection all the time, or, just women. It's a women's hangout place.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
it's
think you're
really
completely right. That's why I'm hiring some help, because I'm so overwhelmed and all these things take so much time. So I'm going to get help so that I can be there for you guys, because I really want my sisters out there, that's middle-aged girls, to find this, because
Mhm.
you still have a lot of burdens as a woman. And this time of year, especially, you think about it. The cartoons tell us that there's a Santa Claus and a whole bunch of elves who make Christmas happen. But you know who those people really are is the women, the middle-aged women are doing the decorating, the shopping, the planning, the cooking, the caring, the worrying. And it's a lot.
Yeah,
And you don't need oxalate pulling you down and ruining your life.
right. Yeah. All right. I want to tell them your website is Sally K. Norton .com/toxic superfoods.
Perfect.
Huh?
That's
Did
that's
I say
great. And you
right?
get a free bonus if you order the book before it comes out, before it's technically in your mailbox.
Okay.
You can get this free recipe booklet. It's about 12 recipes in there that
Mhm.
are mostly not in the main book. There might be one or two overlaps. I forget what happened there, but there's a little free bonus there also that you get from my website.
Okay. Cool. So everybody needs to go to the website for sure. Sally, I am so pleased that you were on Second Wind today, because we all need a second wind someplace in our life. We've all gone through them. So you completed my listening audience today so that they can get the value of your knowledge, and it's just been most helpful.
What
And
an
you,
honor and joy to be with you. And this is like the ultimate second wind. It's for me, it was like a whole rebirth to finally feel good.
oh yeah, I bet. Yeah. So thank you very much for being on Second Wind today. So I'm going to speak just shortly to my listeners, and then I'll be back with you. So, dear friends out there, that one of the things I always ask you, the most important thing is to share. Somebody that's struggling with pain in the body, share with that person so that they can know there is actually an answer out there. It's very frustrating when you go to the medical world and that you talk about your pain and you walk out with the same pain, or maybe it increases, and what you have no solutions. So be sure that you think about that person and there's probably some in your family that could benefit from this. So that's the only assignment I ask of you this week. Just share this message so people can become healed from their pain and discomfort. So thank you for being here. As usual, I love knowing that you've been here, and I look forward to next week when we will share another second wind experience. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.